When it comes to Uvalde, so Pete Arredondo, he is the chief of police of the Uvalde Public School District, and he is the one who really people are blaming for, the response for the tragic school shooting. And obviously we've gone over it before. The school shooting was problematic. The response was just awful from police. So Pete Arredondo, he hasn't done any media interviews until around June 9th. He actually did a phone interview with the Texas Tribune. And on June 9th, the Texas Tribune, they published an article basically documenting that. And in it, I read that article, and Pete Arredondo, he said three main takeaways that I have from this that he said about why this happened and kind of how his actions were. So the first one that I just find extremely strange is that Pete Arredondo said that he was one of the first officers to arrive on scene, which makes sense. The Uvalde Public School District Police is a police department of 6 officers, and then him as the chief. So he was one of the first to respond, and this is the crazy thing he said. He said that he purposely left his radio in the car. He said he didn't want the radio to slow him down, or get the radio to slow him down. He also made some comments about not being able to manipulate both his gun and his radio. So anyone in law enforcement or who follows law enforcement, this is an absolutely insane thing to say. So just first of all, you don't have a radio clip. There's no proper way to carry a radio and a gun. This seems extremely poor planning, if that's the case. He also, when you're in an emergency, besides a gun, one of the most important things that a police officer can have is their radio. This is how officers can not only distribute information that they're seeing to dispatch, to relay to other resources and to coordinate, but also this is how officers receive information. So, maybe one of the reasons that Pete Arredondo said he didn't know that there were school children and teachers who were alive and possibly needing medical aid in the room with the shooter, he said he just didn't know that was the case. Well, maybe it's because he didn't have a radio. So this is one of the reasons why this is just very, very basic. And another thing that he said that I find infuriating is he said that, well, it wouldn't have mattered if I brought a radio because radios don't work in the school anyways. Radios don't work in the school? Well, during a school shooting seems like a strange time to bring that up. Who's the chief of police? Who's in charge? So has Pete Arredondo, before this happened, has he brought this up to the city council that he's now sitting on? Has he brought this up to the city council, to members of the government, to members of the public? Like, hey, just so you know, our police radios do not work inside the schools. It just seems a very strange time to bring that up when there's an active school shooting. So I think that was one of the main things that he said that I found to be very strange and frankly frustrating. He also said that one of the things that prevented officers when they were in the hallway to getting into the classroom is they couldn't breach that door. Now, the Uvalde Public School District Police, again, it's a small department of 6 officers. I wouldn't expect them to have the most advanced breaching tools. I think it's reasonable that they wouldn't. But what about a key? So he said that he had to have multiple different janitors come by with these giant key rings. He said the key ring weighed like 10 pounds, and he's trying different keys, almost like this is like a bad sitcom episode from the 90s, that, he's trying different keys and he's not able to get in. So the keys aren't labeled. Neither the janitors or the police department knows which key opens which door. Again, the time to find that out during a school shooting is absolutely insane. So even if we're absolutely going to criticize the police officers, how they acted and what they did in the moment, but there should be a lot of criticism also when it comes to planning. Radios don't work, and you don't know how to get into a classroom. The keys aren't labeled. There's no master key. That's absolutely insane. Also, one of the other things he said is that he said that he was surprised that he was the incident commander. He didn't know that he was the incident commander. So he's the chief of police, and he's one of the first on scene. And he didn't know that he was the incident commander. All these media interviews and the news, calling him the incident commander. He said that's the first time he's heard of it. Well, if you're the chief of police and the first one on scene, who else would be the incident commander? And, I guess it's one of those things where, I guess if you don't have a working radio to communicate with the 5 other police law enforcement agencies who are arriving on scene. So if you don't have a radio to communicate with them, yeah, I guess it would make it difficult to know who is the incident commander. But the assumption that he is the incident commander, that would be the assumption. There's not 100 schools in this school district. There's a couple different schools. I think that there's 6 schools. So again, the idea of not knowing how to get into classrooms is extremely crazy. And one of the things that not only we have been working on, but a lot of other media agencies have also been working on is obviously trying to get the body cam footage of what happened that day. So we want the body cam footage, and not only the body cam footage, but also the cell phone footage. So Pete Arredondo said that when he was in that hallway, the only way he was communicating with dispatch was on his cell phone. Well, I think I'm not the only one who wants to know what was said on that cell phone. If he was calling dispatch or emergency communications, that should be recorded. That should be public information as well, even if it's a personal phone. So one of the problems when it comes to IPRA laws, and these are the types of laws, essentially public information laws, where police, where news agencies and the media can get copies of body camera footage and different things that are public information that our public servants do. So every state has different IPRA laws. Texas is notorious for not having journalist or media-friendly IPRA laws. So we're already operating in a venue that isn't friendly to media when it comes to this, and we have this situation where it's going to make a lot of people look bad, and they're going to be apprehensive to let it go, to not let it out anyways. So they're essentially what the Attorney General of Texas, I believe his name is Ken Paxton, what the Attorney General of Texas is saying when it comes to the release of the body cam videos is he's saying no, and he's citing an ongoing investigation. Now, a couple things on that. So let's say the shooter was alive, and the shooter was going to go to trial, and they said, because of trial purposes, there's a lot of body cam footage that we're going to use in prosecution, so we're not going to put it out publicly because we have witnesses, they could list all these reasons. I would almost have sympathy, not for all the video, but I would have sympathy for that, or I would at least understand the line of thinking. But there is no trial. There is no offender who's going to be, at least when it comes to the school shooter. He's dead. So there's no ongoing criminal action against the shooter. So to me, that excuse is just baffling of why they would not want to release. Well, I know that I don't want to release it, but that's the public excuse that they're giving. So like I said, our Copwatch TV, as well as I'm sure hundreds of other media organizations, are trying to get the body camera footage. And believe it, as soon as the body camera footage is available, it is going to be on Copwatch TV immediately. And we're going to come in here and do a breakdown of it as soon as possible.